So just a couple of quick announcements before we go forward. You're joining us on our regular Sunday sit. That's every Sunday for our Dharma talk and sit, 4:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. On the third Sunday of the month, we also meet in person and on Zoom, which the in-person is the same place we've been using, the UCOD facility in Rancho Mirage. That'll be actually our next Sunday, the third Sunday, the 18th of September. You can join us in person in community or online in community. Today we have, of course, Mary Stancavage. On Tuesday, we have Valerie Cusson, who'll be leading the Meditation as Refuge group. That is Zoom only, 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. Wednesday, we have our Just Sit. It's a silent peer-led meditation group that meets on Zoom, 5:30 p.m. to 6:15 p.m. And on Friday, Ian Chalice will be leading our loving kindness meditation. That's going to be 4:30 p.m. to 5:15 p.m. on Zoom only. On the first Saturday of the month, you can also join us for our beginning meditation class. It's great for new beginners and experienced beginners, I call them. If you need a refresher on how to meditate, it'll be about posture, breathing, things like that. The next class is going to be on October 1st with Ian Chalice. And we're also supporting Dhammadina having their 4-week residential retreat between October 24th and November 24th in Joshua Tree at their Dhammadina Retreat Meditation Center. They have spaces left for self-identified Black, Indigenous people of color. And this is also a LGBTQ retreat led by Leslie Booker, Arena Wiseman, and Ian Chalice. I'm also going to be posting a link for Donna and some emails in case you would like to get in touch with us to volunteer your skills and your time. That'll be posted into the chat shortly. Thank you. With that, I'll leave you to Mary.
Thanks, Adrian. I appreciate that. And hi, everyone. It's good to be with you. I did a double take when you said that the next intro meditation will be October 2nd, which means October is just right around the corner, which is it's always astonishing to me. I don't know why. I've been doing this a lot of years, but I'm still getting astonished at times how quickly time moves. So anyway, it's lovely to be with you, my friends. I am always happy to be in community with other practitioners. And I think, is there anyone here for the first time at this group, No, you've all been here before. So we'll do a meditation, then we'll have some Q&A, then we'll have some Dharma, then we'll have some conversation. And so I'm going to invite us to move into, I do a morning meditation every day. And over the last week, we've been moving in a practice towards equanimity, which is really just the ability to be with our experience with wisdom and compassion without reactivity, basically, is what that is. It's the ability to hold whatever's showing up, seeing it, making space for the pleasant, the uncomfortable, making space for the pleasant, the comfortable, making space for it all. It's really what the practice is about, not holding on or pushing away anything. And so I'm going to offer some instructions on that as you move into practice this afternoon. We'll sit for about 40 minutes. And yeah, that's it. And I always like to say a couple of things. One, you can't make a mistake. So if equanimity eludes you this afternoon, which it probably will elude me also, just recognize that this is a practice and we're moving in the direction. That's an intention to move towards that. And that we do this all with kindness and gentleness. We hold this with without judgment, without criticism. There's a friendliness in our practice that's very, very important. So let's sit. Let yourselves come into your posture, finding your seat. If you want to stretch a little bit, please do so, making yourself feel comfortable. And that also helps to release any tension or tightness in the body. Taking a moment to just settle in, allowing the mind to relax as well, letting any agenda fall to the side, letting any expectations go, noticing any residual thoughts that may be hanging around and letting those just drop away as best you can. Trusting that anything important will be available again. Giving yourself the chance to just be right here. The first foundation of mindfulness, the Buddha invited us to move into awareness of the body, feeling yourself sitting, feeling yourself supported by the seat. Allow the body to relax. Perhaps you can move through and soften any particular places you know tend to contract or get stiff or rigid, sometimes around the face, allowing the face, the jaw to relax, allowing the shoulders to relax, the arms and the hands just rest. Relaxing the torso. Softening the hips, the legs, the feet. Letting go of all the tension that's been carried, whether you're aware of it or not. Perhaps you're aware of the different sensations in the body. When we bring our attention, sometimes we become aware of sensations, energies that are often there, but we're not aware of because we're caught in the thinking mind. Notice any internal sensations, any tingling, throbbing, pulsing. Notice any external sensations, perhaps temperature, perhaps feeling clothing against your skin. Touch of your foot on the floor, your butt on the seat, the cushion. Let yourself rest in this body awareness, not thinking about, just experiencing, being with. Continuing to open awareness, moving to include the body as it breathes. If you haven't already, become aware of the breath. Body moves with each breath, the inhale, the exhale. Let yourself experience this body breathing. Even if the mind is distracted, perhaps there's some restlessness, know that the breath and the body are always right here, a place to return to, a place to land. There's a steadiness, perhaps even a stillness, this resting in the present, releasing the thoughts that pull you away, back to right here. There's nowhere else to be but right here. As much as the mind wants to travel, to think about so many things, there's really only right here. Making the effort to release those thoughts and stay, resting in the gentle awareness, breath, the body, opening perhaps the other sense doors, aware of sounds, aware of smells, aware of the thoughts come and go. Let yourself rest in this awareness without reactivity, without preference. Remembering also the invitation for kindness. It's a gentle awareness. The experience may be unpleasant or uncomfortable. Let's see if you can just be friendly towards it. If it's especially difficult, perhaps there's some compassion available, some softness. The experience is pleasant. Maybe there's even some joy. Responding rather than reacting to whatever shows up. There is a steadiness that's available if you can drop below the storyline, the stories that the mind is so good at creating or rehashing, the future, the past, making the effort to let go of those stories that pull you away from the experience that's right here. Even stories about the experience that's here. So easy to get lost. The invitation is always to return, resting in the steadiness, breath, the body, now. letting all the comings and goings just fall to the background as you rest in this place of right here, right now. All the sensations pass by, all the thoughts. Even if you do get distracted, you can always return, relaxing the body and the mind, opening in this gentle awareness. You can find that ease, even if only for a breath, a moment's respite from the thinking mind, the reactive mind. Perhaps you can rest for a breath, perhaps longer, as you let everything fall to the background. Just being right here, nothing to do, nowhere to go. No matter how far you travel, there's always the present. There's always here to return to relax into, to be with. Allow yourself to be right here, present for this moment. Breathing in and breathing out. Relax the body and the mind. Open and gentle awareness right here. This breath, this sensation. And we are now moving into the last few moments of our sit this afternoon. I invite you, if you would like, to move into a simple gratitude practice, thinking of something in your life you're grateful for, bringing it to your mind, perhaps to your heart, and spending the next few moments resting in that gratitude. Thank you, everyone. Any questions about the practice, the instructions, your experience? I hope you are all able to rest in a place of equanimity and ease, at least for a moment. Nothing. Going once, going twice. Okay, so I will move into my talk. I'm calling this All You Need Is Love. A couple of weeks, I do a weekly Dharma class. I've been doing it for years and years. And last week, I gave this talk last week, and the reason I wanted to talk about love is because it seemed to me, well, there was two reasons. One, I was hearing a lot of quotes, a lot of memes about really the foundational aspect of love and how love is so necessary for how we move through the world. I can't remember most of the quotes or any of the quotes that I heard during that week that this was coming up for me. But I landed especially because I have also seen all the anger and rage and vitriol that people are spewing at each other so easily, so glibly these days. It's almost there's an entitlement to let people know how they feel, some folks to let others know how they feel, even if it's rude and nasty. There's this bizarre sense of, as I said, entitlement around that. And it's in the country, it's in the world, it's around big, huge issues, it's around nothing issues, parking spaces, things like that. And I wanted to share something that I was experiencing last week as well around this. And so just tell a story. I am a baseball fan. I really enjoy baseball. I have most of my life, and I grew up in New York City, and I am a Yankee fan. And I moved to the Los Angeles area many, many, many years ago, and I also became an Angels fan. And last week, almost 2 weeks ago now, the Yankees were playing the Angels here in Southern California. And I follow a Facebook page, an Angels Facebook page, and the vitriol about the other team. There's a particular player on the Yankees who's doing really, really well this year. He's chasing records, Babe Ruth records. Most of you probably heard of Babe Ruth. And so he's doing really well. And there was this nastiness. And it's like, it was shocking to me. It was really, really shocking to me. And I found it to be so unnecessary because it's baseball. And I kind of mentioned that to some people, and they went, "No, it's okay to hate them." And I thought about that, and I, as I said, I grew up in New York, and in New York, you're not allowed to like any teams from Boston. It was just kind of, okay, you hate them. You hate the Red Sox, you hate the Rangers, you hate this, you hate blah, blah, blah. And I didn't think anything about it. That was conditioning. I mean, and that's a really silly example, or it can be a silly example, but that was my conditioning. It's okay to not like these other people. It's okay to carry aversion in my heart. It's okay to cultivate one of the defilements. To put it in Buddhist terms, it's okay to do this because we have deemed them other or unworthy or whatever you have it. And um, I have, because of this practice, somehow that has fallen away. And I'm really grateful for that because, and I think what really brought it home to me was, I don't know, a number of years ago when there was the real focus on bullying. And I remember seeing a clip. There was a boy, he was probably his early teens, at Yankee Stadium wearing a Boston Red Sox jacket because they were playing Boston at Yankee Stadium. And there was a whole group of Yankee fans around him just yelling at him, yelling at him. And the kid was just in tears. It was kind of it looked like it was a traumatizing experience. I mean, he was just really shaken up and terrified and in tears. And I went, oh, I'm part of the problem. If I buy into that, then I am part of that. Whether I'm there or not, I'm saying it's okay to other based on these particular criteria that I find important or relevant. And so this is what happens when we just, decide that it's okay to carry this. And not that we actually have this conscious awareness that we're cultivating hatred, that we're cultivating one of the defilements, this aversion, this hatred, this anger, but we're not intentionally working against it. And that's why I think the idea of bringing love into the picture is incredibly important, and having that move into our consciousness and having us say, you know what, this needs to be part of how I move through the world. I have to have a conscious awareness of this. And if you look at the Eightfold Path, the second factor of the Eightfold Path of wise intention, there's a practice of renunciation, of letting go of what causes harm or what causes suffering or dukkha, or does, what causes dukkha. And the second piece of the wise intention is to move through the world cultivating friendliness, cultivating goodwill, cultivating kindness, ultimately loving kindness, metta. Metta, which is translated as loving kindness. There's love in that. Invitation of the Buddha. And then the third piece of the wise intention is non-harming, compassion. We move through the world in a way that doesn't cause harm. And it's not just about not causing harm. This is the beauty of this practice. It's not just about don't do that. It's about cultivate this. Cultivate love, cultivate compassion, cultivate generosity of spirit towards other beings. It's really important to recognize that. And so it's not about, the practice is not about denying emotions. And I love how Lama Rod Owens talks about this so much. And he has a book called Love and Rage. And in it, he talks about anger. And anger is an emotion that many of us are told is not okay, but it just shows up. I mean, anger is an emotion. You can't help the emotions that show up. There's anger or any of its iterations of, the aversion. There's jealousy and envy and what have you. It's recognition that that's there, but not getting lost in it. And he says, rage is when you let this emotion take over, is when you let the anger take over. And when we're not paying attention is when we can get lost so easily in that place of othering and saying, you're not worthy. I have determined because of what you look like, because of who you love, because of where you come from, because of the language you speak, because of how tall you are, how short you are, what color hair you have, what sports ball team you root for, that you are worthy or unworthy of love. And instead, this practice is no, we have to move into love, period. Period. So we have to let go of that fixed place of othering and instead allow ourselves to greet everything with this kindness, with this goodwill, with this compassion, even the things that are unpleasant. And this is one of the hardest parts, because we have set, it's like, this is lovable, this is not lovable. Instead, we have to invite everything in. And Mushin Patricia Ikeda, who many of you know, she is a teacher up at East Bay Meditation Center. And she's written, she says, for those of us with a spiritual path and set of practices who are willing to leave the home of comfortable assumptions. I love that phrase. Leave the home of comfortable assumptions. We have now the choice to say yes to the virus pandemic and economic collapse. Yes to mass extinctions of flora and fauna. Yes to the threats of fascism, and speaking for myself, yes to giving up the urgent need to know and control. acknowledging my Buddhist vows to stick around as long as I can and help to decrease suffering, I need to go through the inner landscape of all my emotions, all my hopes, all my inconceivable fears and vows and faith and doubt. I need to do this omitting none. Omitting none, as it says in the Buddhist teachings, and one of the translations of the Metta Sutta. You know, I have to show up with love for everything, even the stuff I don't like. I have to let go of aversion. It's a pandemic. Okay, it's here. You know, there's the reality of this moment. Okay. There can be anger about injustice, but watch if that anger turns into being consumed by it and turns into rage and turns into hatred. There's a difference. And I think if you shift how you talk about things, instead of saying, I am, say, there is. This is arising in me. I have lots of anger arising around a lot of things that are happening right now. A lot of things that are happening right now. And it's like, yes, it's extremely difficult to love people who commit atrocities. But I don't want to cultivate hatred. Even if there's just an absence of rage. This is not easy. Let me step back and say, this ain't easy stuff. If it were easy, we'd all be walking around with flowers in our hair, you know, harking back to the 60s. But it's not easy. It's incredibly difficult. It's incredibly difficult. There's also the recognition in this piece that loving someone does not mean we condone their actions. There's really a difference. We can have compassion for somebody who is so caught up in whatever they're caught up in, that they would commit atrocities, that they would do awful things. John Lewis talked about that in his book, his memoir, Walking with the Wind, about the need to find compassion in his heart when he was facing someone who hated him and wanted to hit him over the head with a baseball bat. It's really, I don't want to become the people I'm facing, that it's so easy to other. It's so easy to be dismissive. And if we can be dismissive over here, we can be dismissive anywhere. So how do I not let that piece take over? We have to, I think it's the part of it is the recognition that we all experience the human condition. One of the phrases that I've been working with lately is the idea of I am nature. You know, I read that somewhere, or I heard that somewhere, and it struck home, because again, this place we create this separation. There's human beings, and then there's nature, as if humans are outside of nature. You know, and I go for hikes, and I'm in nature, and I'm like, oh, I am part of this. I consciously tell myself. So this practice is a conscious effort to move away from othering and into this place of openness and willingness to carry love, not hatred, in my heart. I did it a number of years ago. I remember I was at an airport, and I tend to be very judgy when I'm in large places like that. I look at people, I judge their clothing, I judge how big their suitcase is or how many suitcases they have. I don't know why it's important to me that I think people, why do you need so many suitcases? I don't know anything about these people, but I'm judging them. And then I realized I had to tell myself, and I think I heard this in a class at some point. I said, oh yeah, I forgot I love you. I had a teacher who used to say, we have to think that everyone, or someone said, everyone else is an enlightened Buddha except me. I have to remember that. I have to remember, oh, I love you. I love you. Doesn't mean I condone anything you're doing if it's causing harm. And it means I doesn't mean I'm not going to work to end harm, but I don't want to carry hate in my heart. And as I said, it takes a lot of work, and some of us have been so wounded, and some of us have experienced so much oppression. It's really challenging. It's incredibly challenging. Absolutely. And I'm not saying it's easy and just la-di-da-di-da, but to perhaps entertain the idea that I can move through this world with a heart and mind of love. And maybe at some point down the line, I will be able to have this experience of love. Maybe not even in this lifetime. If we believe the teachings, the Buddha had multiple lifetimes. On the night of his awakening, he saw all his prior lives. And when we talk about the paramis, the teachings of those qualities that are necessary for awakening, it's said that he lived multiple eons, living multiple lives to develop different qualities, including loving kindness, including compassion, including equanimity. So that, I think, is simply a way of saying this stuff takes time, and be gentle with yourself, but perhaps move in that direction. The Eightfold Path invites us to move in that direction. And to open to love, and this is something else I've been looking at or writing about, is something I'm writing, is we have to be open to open to love means to open to sorrow. As Patricia, Mushin Patricia Ikeda said, we have to say yes to all the things, yes to the pandemic, yes to fascists, yes to extinction, because it's here, it's happening. We don't say no, because that's just fighting reality. We have to acknowledge that it's happening. We also say yes to all those painful emotions that maybe we've worked so hard to let go of. And here's another quote from Lama Rod that I saw after I taught that class. It says, "Love will open the door to my mourning, mourning, my grieving. Love says this is yours to experience. If you bypass this experience, you will suffer more." Love allows us to open up to these experiences. There's a vulnerability with love. Bell Hooks, who I also love, she said, to be loving is to be open to grief, to be touched by sorrow, even sorrow that is unending. It sounds scary, and it can be really scary, but my experience around this is that my aversion to feeling sorrow, my aversion to feeling grief is much worse and feels much worse than my willingness to open up to it. Because to love is to be human, is to be connected, is to recognize we're not separate from each other, we're not separate from nature. We're human beings with all these experiences, that first noble truth. We experience grief, we experience loss, we experience separation from things we love. Let's not harden our hearts to it. There's another, well, a couple of things come to mind. Another thing that is comes about with love, which I thought was really interesting, is the idea of responsibility. Eric Fromm, a psychiatrist, said that responsibility is one of the key elements of love. And Richard Gere, who has actually been a student of the Dalai Lamas for like 40 years, he said, the best way to, and he got this from the Dalai Lama, he said, the best way to navigate the world we live in, samsara, is through a sense of universal responsibility, that there's no one outside of our concern. There's no thing outside of our concern. To the extent that we are able to develop ourselves We are responsible for the whole universe constantly. That is a place of love. We have this caring. It's not that we enable people or go out or take care of everyone, but we have this openness of heart, this, as I like to talk about it, the undefended heart, this willingness to open to others, this willingness to let others in, to be touched. In the early Buddhist texts, the Buddha talks about a heart and mind imbued with loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. The Brahma Viharas, the heart practices. We live in a world where we live in a way where our hearts and minds are imbued with these four factors. And there's another sutta, one of my favorites, the Rajan Sutta, where it talks about, each person finds themselves dear. And just as we find ourselves dear, we're dear to ourselves, we have to recognize that all other beings find themselves dear. So we treat others as we would treat ourselves. That's coming from this place of friendliness, this place of goodwill, this place of non-harming. And a place of non-harming includes not having those ideas of harming. So to really consciously put that into play in our lives, that intention to move in that direction. And, I find myself slipping into othering very easily, very easily. And so that's why I want to investigate this and to keep it in my consciousness. What we focus on is what we move towards. That's why I think wise intention, right intention is so important, because intention leads to action, which leads to habit, which leads to character, which leads to destiny. So I want to be the person moving towards love, not away from love, moving towards a kind and compassionate heart, and away from a heart that others and finds it so easy to be dismissive. Dismissiveness, so easy for me. So easy for me. It's part of that judgment. It's part of that othering. And one of the difficult practices around this is the practice of mudita, that joy for the good fortune, the wholesome good fortune of others, because we live in a society that celebrates competition, that pits one person against another. My husband likes to watch those shows. I don't know whether they're on the History Channel or whatever, talking about, looking about, the captains of industry from like the late 1800s, the early 1900s, like the Rockefellers and the people who built the railroads, and even the people who invented toys in the 50s, like Barbie, or the people who made Mars bars and Snickers and things like that. They were always pitted against each other, and they always had to get, I can't be number two. I can't be satisfied with this. I have to be number one. How do we get on top of the other one? And it's always this place of not celebrating the good fortune of others. It's about, no, there's got to be, if they get theirs, where's mine? There's this idea of lack, which is why I also love the practice of generosity in Buddhism and how important that is. Not even generosity necessarily of financial or stuff, but generosity of the heart, generosity of the spirit. Cannot we celebrate the good fortune of others? And I had this experience with, as I mentioned, in baseball. They were dissing this guy who's doing really well. It's like, can't we celebrate his accomplishments? He's doing so well. Let's lift him up and celebrate this wonderful performance. It's like, no. Ah. And we see it so often too in our society, where people get to a certain place and then it's so easy to tear them down. I don't know what it is, but it's like, oh, they've had their moment in the sun. Let's rip them down. And there's the idea of Schadenfreude. Really glee at the misfortune of others, especially people who we think deserve to have misfortune. It's like, I don't think, I have to say I'm guilty of Schadenfreude. I like that word, and B, it feels so rewarding when somebody we don't like has misfortune. It's so easy to go into that, oh, that's karma. That's not how karma works, but you know, it's an easy place to fall back to. So really being careful how we do it unconsciously, and to recognize it's like, oh no, it's like in the airport, oh no, I forgot I love you. I forgot I love you. I may not invite you into my house. You may not be safe for me to be around. You may be a person who causes great harm, but I don't want to carry hate in my heart for you. I don't want to cultivate one of the defilements. It's really, really, really important to recognize. It's so easy to do, but it's so important not to. Bell Hooks again says, the moment we choose to love, we begin to move against domination, against oppression. The moment we choose to love, we begin to move towards freedom, to act in ways that liberate ourselves and others. That action is the testimony of love as the practice of freedom. And we are on a path towards liberation and freedom. When we choose to love, we choose to move against fear, against alienation and separation. The choice to love is a choice to connect, to find ourselves in the other, to find ourselves in the other, even those we don't like. It's really important to keep that, recognize that shared humanity. I think it was Solzhenitsyn who had the quote, it's so easy, it would be so easy if we could just find evil and take evil people and put them over there, instead of recognizing that that runs through each of us. You know, that was a butchering of the quote, but the recognition is, you know, it's not all one or all the other. We're all a mix of so many things. So the intentionality behind being loving and disentangling the ease with which we find dismissiveness, othering is so important. And I will finish with this piece from Gil Fronsdal, who many of you know, teacher from Northern California. To be free only when things are pleasant is not real liberation. Similarly, to love only in optimal conditions is not real love. Not a few Buddhist meditators have experienced great love while in meditation, only to have it disappear quickly outside of meditation. It can be easy to love all beings in the abstract, but it can be a great challenge to do so when we have to live with them. It is one thing to love and another to express that love in daily life. One of the most rewarding spiritual practices is to cultivate the ability to bring love into all aspects of our life and to all people we encounter. This entails learning how to include love's presence while we speak to others, are in conflict with others, and are living with others. While this can be a daunting task, it begins with the intention to do so. And it's supported by the Eightfold Path again. Wise speech, not causing harm, the factors, you know, the precepts, wise action, sila. It's supported by the teachings, but we have to bring it into all aspects and recognize it can be a challenge. But I think it's really important, and I really hope I can bring more of it into my life, because I don't like myself when I fall into that place of snarky or sarcastic or nasty, because I can go to all those places. It was conditioned in me growing up really easily, and it doesn't serve any purpose anymore, and I hope I can let it go. So thank you, my friends, for your kind attention. And we are just about out of time. So thank you so much, my friends, for your kind attention. And I think I'm not sure. I think at some point Adrian had put the link to the Donna in the chat at the outset, so that's great. Yeah, there's another message, and then yeah, and you all know all the things that are happening, and then Arena Weissman and I on, I think it's October 15th, and I think it's on the website. The email may have gone out this week about offering a workshop. I can't remember the title of it, but it's on the website. When I get sometimes to the end of the day, my brain just everything leaks out. So especially if it's on the website. So anyway, thank you, my friends. Much love to be with you. And next week it's the hybrid session again. So it'll be in person and on Zoom. So remembering that we don't just practice for our own benefit, but we practice for the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free. Thank you. See you next time.